Good evening and welcome to Kitchen Remodel. My name is Brian Deerwachter. I'm a program specialist 2 with Bloomington HRA. We sponsor these events. There are 3 every summer, 1 in June, 1 in July, and 1 in August. We had one earlier in June. That one was on concrete. This one is Kitchen Remodel, and we'll have one in August. I'm not exactly sure of the date. It's a Thursday, though. We hope we'll see you at that one, too. If you have not filled out one of these, we'd ask that you do at the conclusion. You can get 2 gift cards at Home Depot, $25 each. We'll draw 2 of those names, so 2 of you will win that. At the conclusion, you must be present to win, and 1 per household. I mentioned I'm with the HRA. We do have loan programs that are available if you have any interest in financing, low interest financing. You do have to be income eligible, and equity requirements do apply, but if you're interested, I put our website up here, bloomingtonmn.gov, and then in the keyword you can put in HRA or loans and find out more about our programs and what we're about. So, and then in the back we do have cookies for you and some refreshing Bloomington drinking water. It's one taste test, it's wonderful, so help yourself. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lynn, who is with DreamMaker Bath and Kitchen for 20 years? Just about 20 years, so he's got a lot of good information. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody, and thanks for coming out tonight. As they said, that I'm with DreamMaker Bath and Kitchen. We're a design, build, remodeling company, and we've been in St. Louis. We're located in St. Louis Park. We've been there for going on our 20th year. We do work all over the Twin Cities area, and what we're going to look at tonight is a lot of kind of case studies or before and after photos of projects that we've done all around the Twin Cities, and we work a lot in Bloomington here, so there's going to be several in here that I'll point out that are Bloomington homes. But I'd like to take you on a bit of a range of transactions here, from simple innovations to total renovations, where we talk about just doing very simple things, inexpensive things you can do to fix up your kitchen, and then gradually transfer through to a lot more and more extensive remodeling, so you can see a wide range of what's out there. And I'm going to talk a lot about different materials and different ways to massage a budget, because every project has a budget. I've never been given a blank check yet. If any of you would like to be the first one, I really want to talk to you tonight, okay? So, but every project has a budget. We get that, we understand it, and it's a matter of trying to maximize value for you and your home. But let's look at and these are just ideas. And this is pretty free form, casual. If you see something, holler out and let's talk about it. I'll also try to leave time at the end for more questions, and just let's be pretty informal about it. I have a little bit of show and tell I'm going to do here for you too, with some different products that you may or may not have seen before. So certain kitchen trends that are out there right now, you'll see kitchens are now the central hub of the home. They always have been, but even more so now, because now we're being asked to do much more open concept homes, and it's really the area where open floor plans promote that family interactions. They're multi-use areas, and also the mix of materials, and you're seeing much more of this furniture-looking cabinetry and other materials, because our homes are being opened up and it's like an extension of your living room and your family room. And so it also allows us to use materials in a more unique and uncommon way. So we're also going to look at some very simple innovations of things you can do. From mixing of materials allow you to stretch a budget and create a new look, and then new materials to allow reuse of existing, such as cabinet refacing, countertop overlays, and flooring overlays. And then the proper mixing of appliances that can stretch your budget. And then just some simple ideas and additions just to spruce up your home. And then we're going to go to a series of more and more extensive remodel work to total renovations. And I hope we show you a series of kitchen remodels that you'll say wow about when we're done. You'll see before and after photos, so you can see the progression of these and why space planning is so critical. And you're going to hear me talk a lot about that through this presentation, about space planning and how you lay out a kitchen space is critical to the function of it and how your family works in that space. We'll talk about materials and other green aspects and universal design aspects. So believe it or not, I still tear these out. You would think this is from the turn of the century where that was your kitchen pretty much, you know, to work at, and I still find them once in a while. And so the challenge here was on this, just this kitchen, that's all the space we have. It's just that. So how can we maximize it? Now, what are we missing? We're just doing dishes and we're prepping here, right? We have no dishwasher. We have nowhere to store anything. So how can we just at least maximize that in a very simple way in this space? So that's one way. Now, this is where I was talking a little bit earlier about different uses of appliances. You all think of a standard dishwasher as being 24 inches wide. Well, this is an 18-inch wide dishwasher that fits in there and allows us to do an apron-style sink and add storage below it. And by adding the cabinetry above, we kind of keep in the feel and the aesthetic of this style of the home, but we added a lot more storage here. So that's what we're talking about, space planning. These are the ideas about function within that space. What can you do? Or this one is a classic. They'd had a water leak up in the ceiling. You have the old tile floor. I love it when they put the handles right in the middle of the door, you know, and I'm an older person, so, you know, I've come before HGTV. But younger people that have grown up on HGTV and think that's the world of remodeling, you know, they quite often they'll come to me with a project like this and they'll say, well, I want a new floor, I want cherry cabinets, I want granite countertops, I want all new appliances, and I want this done for $10,000 because I saw it on HGTV done that way. Well, I'm here to tell you I've done 3 projects for shows on HGTV, so it's a little misleading. But let's just say, let's take $10,000 and what can you do with it? And that's the approach sometimes is what are the different ways you can work with the space? So we're going to keep this and we're going to do this. Now those are the same cabinet doors. We just repainted them. We caulked those holes where the door handles were and put new handles on in a better location. We put a new dishwasher in there. And that is a laminate countertop, but it's granite tiles on the backsplash. So I gave him granite at his countertop, but the look and style is there. It's much more functional now. We cut out some of the center panels and put glass in and painted those out. And then on the other side, there was a little sit-up bar area. So you could take that, and then I did a remnant piece of granite there. So the idea is you can maximize your budget and still get some really high quality materials and make it look great. We put a new vinyl floor in there right over top of the existing tile because the tile was actually in pretty good shape. So you can put a self-leveler on there and then you can install a floor right over it. So that's just an example of how you have to be a bit creative sometimes in how you do this. This is another common thing that we do is this house, they had just bought this place. They had just, before they bought it, the previous owner had just put in the black granite countertops, which they liked. They actually liked the layout of the kitchen. They just really hated the kind of sterile look of the white cabinets. They wanted a warmer, more inviting feel. So this is a perfect candidate for cabinet refacing, where you take the doors and the drawers off and you put new fronts on them and you can totally change the character of the room. While you're doing that, you can also upgrade all the drawer systems or rollout systems and things inside the cabinets to make them much more usable. So this is an example of before, and this is after. And so you can see it can be a pretty dramatic effect and a warm, inviting feel, which is what they wanted. And we wrapped the back of the island with a laminate in a metal. Or this was a project where it was, the photography isn't really good here, but it's an old pickled maple from the 70s. It was very strong then. And there was, this family had lived with this layout of this kitchen for a long time and they really liked the layout, or sometimes people just get used to what they get used to and they don't want to change it. And I understand that. But they wanted a change in the aesthetic of the space. The tile floor was in good shape, and everything about this was as a more traditional style. And they had just spent a lot of time going through the rest of their home and making it much more contemporary, and the kitchen was the last space to be touched. So how do we change the style of this? By just doing, again, very simple things. In this case, we're going to take the cabinet doors off the base cabinets and the wall cabinets, and we're going to paint the boxes, and we're going to put new door fronts on there. And we're going to take it from a very traditional look like this to a very contemporary look. And that's done with newer materials too. So for example, up here, I'm going to show you a couple of things. These are doors that are called textured melamine materials. So it's basically a lightweight laminate material that's shrink wrapped over a wood core. If you feel it, it's really quite heavy, and it's very durable because it is a laminate. It wipes off great, and yet it has a very subtle, nice texture to it, just like a real wood grain. These come in many, many colors and patterns now, but that's what's done here on the base cabinets. And then on the upper cabinets, you can just do a white gloss laminate, and you can do that in a gloss laminate where it's wrapped around a door like this, or you can lay a piece of acrylic onto the face of this, and it looks like floating glass on the front. But it's still just a wood core with a laminated material over the top of it. And then here is an opportunity where the countertops, there's no, I'm an interior designer by training. And so we do work in a design build, and there's no design rule that says all the countertops have to match. So in this case, the countertops on the right are a recycled glass material that's done by a local artisan, where you can actually sit there and custom design your own countertop if you want to. You can pick the colors of glass, you can pick the size of the particulate, you can pick the background color, and you can pick out the percentage of different mix of materials within it and have that done for you. And then on the left is a standard quartz countertop, like you might be familiar with brand names like Cambria or Caesar Stone. That's a quartz countertop on the left. So very, very versatile. And then the backsplash here is a corrugated aluminum laminate, very inexpensive, and it's just laid right over. We took the tile off and gives it a nice clean look, and then new hardware. And then the one new cabinet in here is the one in the very end in the upper right. That was the other side of the room before. That's the after. And then that's looking out from the kitchen, and that's the textured melamine with the drain board and the countertop. And this was the cabinet before. On the end, it was an old wine cube that they never really used. So that was the one new cabinet we put in there. And those shelves are technology where it's an aluminum frame with glass in it that's lined with LED lights. So the nice thing about that is when you set something on there, the LED lights light both up and down. So it lights that entire cabinet. So there are places where you might want to spend a little more money for something like that that gives you the effect you want, and you can cut back in other areas. And then this is a tiny little kitchen in a little townhouse, and very dark, very heavy looking, very dangerous. As a kitchen designer, I'll point out that that pantry right next to that range is a very dangerous situation. I'm amazed it hasn't caught fire yet. So there's a problem there. It's also very little working space. You have the dishwasher right there, and you can see that this dishwasher was probably added at a later date, and when this door is dropped down and you're loading it, there's hardly any, you're squeezed into the right of it, right by the sink. So none of this really functions and works very well. But you know, it's a pretty inexpensive townhouse. We don't want to put a lot of money into this, but how can we make it better? Oh, the other thing, you'll notice across the top, it's kind of a weird thing. The soffits are there, but they're not deep. They're not as deep as the cabinets, so it leaves a little ledge at the top of the cabinets. Now she has a cat by the name of Oliver who likes to crawl up there and walk across the top of there. The trouble is Oliver has a little trouble when he gets to that valance across the window, and she says that's always a kind of a show to see him tiptoe across that. He'll walk across that window valance there, jump up on the counter and get up on the fridge and jump up there and go across. So how can we take this, and also because this is very dark cabinetry and this is a very small room, the idea is let's lighten up the cabinetry and make the room feel bigger. So here's one way to do that. So these are still mid-tone stained cabinets, Taking the pantry out over here allows us to put a nice safe counter space there for a safe landing space. We made the sink turn a little bit more into the corner of the kitchen, so at least it was a little better. And then you'll see that on the other side, we took out the little window valance and just created a little wood top there to connect those two areas. And that way Oliver's got his.
Are those
So
brand new cabinets then?
these are brand new cabinets. But now these are stock cabinets. So these are all prefab sizes. But how you can work with stock cabinetry and make it fit, this whole kitchen we did with new countertops, new cabinets with the labor, and we did that for $12,000. So just to give you a sense of where money is, that's one option. And then, of course, we designed for all members of the family, including Oliver the cat. So. And then this was in a pretty tough shape when we walked in there. But this is also about space planning too, because in this house, you'll see this is a door back here going down to the basement. But also in this house, there's another door down to the basement. So you have redundant stairways. And yet the refrigerator right over here is sticking out basically in the middle of the room against a wall. So just the idea of capturing that space from the stairwell and utilizing that. And then the challenge was we wanted it to look very retro. So everybody's idea of retro is a little different. So here's one option. So by capturing that stairway space, that allowed us to create a nice nook there to put the refrigerator there, which then opened up the space in the middle so we could add an island. And you'll see that the kind of retro look was, this is a laminate countertop with the old metal edge from the 1950s or so. And just to kind of give it a look. And also this is one of these very inexpensive fix-up and makeover ideas, is just paint color. Now you'll notice here on the left, it's a nice golden shade on the left, and they took one accent wall on the outside wall, which used to be the brick, and we drywalled that up and painted that red. Now why red? Just because people like red? You see red a lot in fast food restaurants, don't you? That's because it stimulates your glands so that you feel hungrier. And there's a art behind that color theory. So that's one way to do it. We walk into a lot of small spaces. These are townhouses too that were built and closed off. There's your kitchen behind there, and you're sitting at the table. Nice conversation area in between. So just a simple way to open this up is just, the problem is if you tear out the entire area above, you end up popcorn ceilings everywhere, and once you touch that ceiling, you got to do it all. So the idea of just doing a small drop soffit that you can do what they call flat taping, where you tape right up to the popcorn ceiling, then that allows us to drop the lights in there, and we don't have to disturb the rest of the popcorn and the rest of the unit. And then that allows us to build the opening there. And it's a way to keep the budget down, but yet give you a nice open look and add a lot more lighting to the space. Kitchens, a lot of the kitchen theory and development was actually done right here in Minnesota back in the 50s, where they developed a lot of these kind of U-shaped kitchens that was made for the average 5'4" woman who was the only cook in the house and worked in the kitchen alone. And that's where a lot of our kitchen theory came from. Well, that's not how we use kitchens today. Now it's multi-family members, and I have many clients where the men are the cook. And so it's not a gender issue, but it's also, with that, whoever is doing the cooking, you want it to function for them. So what's their reach height? What's their ergonomics for the countertop height? All those 36-inch high countertop is a proper ergonomic height for a 5'4" average woman in the 1950s. That's how it came about. So those rules can be rethought. Quite commonly, the proper way to do that ergonomically is take your bent elbow and measure to the floor and subtract 3 or 4 inches. If you're working at a counter, that's the actual best ergonomic position for you to work at. So you can size your countertop heights for you. So just ideas. But here we wanted to open this up because when you create that little peninsula there, it basically traps that person in that space, and visually it stops the room, right? And then you have this wall with an archway in it, but it's not doing anything. There's nothing against it. It's not helping. So just by opening up that wall and straightening out the kitchen and making it a galley, It's a lot more functional in how you use it. And also because you've opened it up, now it becomes more a part of the living space, and you want to treat it like it goes with that. And then you can add to the lighting and different things like that.
What's on the floor?
What's on the floor is just a tile, a ceramic tile. You'll see a lot of lighting ideas in these programs because most every kitchen I walk into, the lighting is horrible, you know. And if yours is one of those kitchens, hopefully you can pick up some ideas here. But the idea of multi-types of light, so you'll have your general lighting, you'll have task lighting, get your under cabinet lighting in there so it's lighting up your workspace in front of you. We're having to update a lot of that stuff in almost every project that we do. And that is that project afterwards. And I wanted to show you this. What do you think of that countertop? Does it look like stone? It's a laminate, actually. And laminates have come a long ways. Most people are only familiar with laminate countertops of the 20 pretty ugly colors that they see in the home centers. They don't really realize that there's over 6,000 choices available in laminate countertops. But the real key about it is, this is one version, but there's a newer version since this was done, where we can now take your sink and undermount it underneath the laminate countertop. So that was always the bugaboo before. Well, I want an undermount sink for easy cleanability. That's why I wanted to go to stone or granite or quartz. And that's fine, you can still do that, but you also have that capability to do that with a laminate countertop now for a third to a half the cost. So there again, it's where do you want to put your dollars? And this one has the old gallery rail at the top and the soffit and that kind of thing. So this is a makeover where I'd like to show what you can do with different soffits. So here, one way to deal with a soffit, if you can't remove it, because sometimes there's plumbing or electrical or things just up in there that you can't move, or you just don't want to spend the money to move it because there's a lot, it's fairly expensive. The one real trick of it is if you're adding new cabinets, just add panels and wrap it right over the edge, and it looks like the cabinets are extended right to the ceiling. And again, another classic little U-shaped kitchen. Only one person can really work in here at a time. Now this couple, they both love to cook and they like to cook together, and one of them's a baker. And if you're a baker and like to do a lot of like rolling out of dough and things like that, the ergonomics are different for that, and the heights of those work counters need to be different for that. So what we did here was we tore that out and created a 3-tiered island. This is also a really good example of good universal design in that you have a sit-up area on the end that's 42 inches tall. You have your standard 36-inch height here with the cooktop in it. And then on the back side, adding a second prep sink in there at a little lower level, that's perfect for a rollout area for any kind of that kind of work. Plus also, if somebody was, say, in this house that was in like a wheelchair, you could roll right up there and use that space too. So there's different ways that you can rework these things, and nothing has to look contrived in any way. One of the best investments you can make if you have multiple cooks working in a kitchen at a time is adding that second prep sink, because 80% of the time that you work in a kitchen is spent working at or near the sink, or from the sink to the fridge. So if you can add a second prep sink, that just expands the capabilities of those people using that space. It's a good investment if you have the space for it. Another U-shaped kitchen with the little dinette set on the side, and then on this end of the would have been the end of the house traditionally over here. But in this case, this client added a family room onto the end. Very common remodel. But I don't know who did this remodel, but somebody forgot to tell them that, you know, you just don't put one support post kind of crazy in the middle like that. It just looks kind of like, oh, I made a mistake. Doesn't it? I think it does. We can't move it without spending a lot of money and redoing that whole header. So instead of doing that, let's be creative about it. We do need to create an area for the table, but it doesn't have to be freestanding. We do want to have access to the family room, but it doesn't necessarily have to be completely wide open. So one idea is let's take that post, which is right here, and add another one to it and create a bench seat here like a restaurant booth, and then put your table there. Those are actually great space savers, the banquette ideas, because it allows the table to get close to the wall. And by doing that, We can take out the U-shaped kitchen. That allows us to put a really nice island in there, and now the access around that is much better. And by going, they had white kitchen before, but they have a more updated white kitchen now, and the space really works. I walked into this house. Yes, sir.
You seem to be fond of putting microwave on top of the stove. Isn't there like a hood that takes air out?
Can be. His question was the microwave with a vent above the stove, right?
Right.
There's two ways to vent it. You can vent it out through the duct, either into the cabinets above and out, or many of those now have what they call recirculating fans in them, where it will circulate the air through a carbon filter for you, and you can clean it that way if you can't get it outside. Sometimes there are code issues that don't allow you to vent it to the outside, but you can do a recirculating fan with the same kind of unit. They usually have those options with them. This home was built in the 20s. I walked in and this client had traveled a lot, so they had bought this walnut furniture piece I thought was pretty striking. And this was an original built-in display cabinet that was already there. So there are things also when you're looking at spaces like this, you don't look at just the kitchen, you look at the rest of the house too, but also for the architectural style of it. There's elements you can bring into your kitchen that are in the architecture of the rest of the home, like moldings or details around the openings, that kind of thing, or color or materials. In this case, there was an oak floor that ran through the whole house, so we wanted to keep the oak flooring. And then on the other side, but that was the kitchen, and it was pretty white, pretty sterile, and there were a couple of problems with it. One was that the range is pretty close to the corner over there, made it very difficult to work at it. It's a little hard to see in this picture, but right next to the range is the dishwasher, and then the sink is on a 45-degree angle right next to it. So if you stood at that sink and opened the dishwasher, you couldn't actually stand there. It wouldn't allow that to work. And then it's a tight space, and there wasn't enough seating. This was a family of 4, and we only had 2 seats to sit up to the bar. And we had a lot of wasted space out here in front that we weren't taking best utilization of. So how do we work with this? And also, stainless steel refrigerators are strong, and they will always probably be a strong trend, but you'll see in a white kitchen like this, they make a strong statement. They look like a tin can in the middle of the room, don't they? Especially when they're kind of not built in. When you see all of it, it starts to look a little imposing. So how can we work with these elements? And that's what you see on the other side. There's a microwave next to it, and then 2 tall pantries. So this is what we did to it. One thing is you can take the countertop and just add on an existing, and now we got seating for 5 just by adding on and utilizing that wasted space that we didn't have before. And we could have done it all with the same countertop, but the idea of bringing the walnut in from those furniture pieces she had was, I thought, a really warm idea. And that's a quartz countertop that it's married to. So you can marry different elements together like that if you want to. And then you see by the refrigerator, and then we were able to add a microwave and an oven over on this side, and by using a different darker color material around it, how that stainless steel recedes into the wall a little bit. And then that allowed us, because we took the oven out of here, that allowed us to free up this whole wall and move the cooktop a little bit more in the center of that room. And that allowed it to become more of a feature focal point wall that draws your eye. That was the kitchen before. When you're looking down there, there's that angle. Imagine standing here with the dishwasher door down. It would be difficult. And you've got this beautiful corner window there, so you've got a nice view to the outside. But on the angle, you're actually looking at the corner, not really through the window. So one way to deal with that is just turn the sink. Square the corner off, and then we moved the dishwasher over to the right side of the sink, so now you can stand there and work at the sink properly, do cleanup properly, and the dishwasher is closer to the area where it needs to be, where the dishes are being made dirty. That allowed us to move the cooktop to the center and put the hood there and create that kind of focal point wall. Now these kinds of backsplashes, you'll see all kinds of decorative backsplashes and things in magazines, and a lot of them are done with tile, and that works great. We do a lot of that. But this technology, these are thin panels. They're about 3/8 of an inch thick. And this is real onyx stone. It's called honey onyx. And it's got a reinforcing backer on it, so you can glue it right to the wall, all as one piece, no grout, really easy care. We do this technology a lot in showers because we just get away with one panel on every single wall of the shower, no grout to deal with anymore, and it's an absolutely beautiful look of real stone. And it'll be there for the life of the house. And that's a close-up of what that looks like. And quite often we'll walk into homes where the soffits have been put in, and that the soffits always define a space. And in this case, this is a good example of how a soffit defines where the kitchen is. But that means then the kitchen's always got to stay there because the soffit is there. Otherwise, you got to tear out the soffits and deal with all the ceiling work and all those things. But if you do that, it does allow you the total freedom to do whatever you need to do. So one example is you can take the same space of what's there, take that out, and you can open it up like this and create an L-shaped kitchen with an island, and it's much more functional, much more multi-purpose, and more user-friendly. And I walk into a lot of older homes where they're all closed off like this, and this home had beautiful cherry woodwork throughout most of the house. You walked into the formal dining room here, and then like many homes, when around the turn of the century, the kitchen was always put in the back, and the kitchen was not really meant to be seen. You know, it was really, you stayed in the front of the house. Well, now look through that door and you can see all the way through to a really large window to a really pretty backyard. And because now the way we use homes, we utilize these spaces much more as a family group. So the idea of opening this up gets you this. So we took that same cherry woodwork that we found in the rest of the house. In the other parts of the house, we found really nice arched doorways like that. So we recreated that look and then added the nice decorative glass there. And then that allowed us to open up the kitchen. I'm going to go back one and notice that floor. That made me dizzy walking in there. I'm sure that was on special the day they bought that. And then you walk in here now, and it's a beautiful tile that's nice, warm, and inviting. And now you see all the way through to the backyard. And that's before. That's the kitchen inside, and you'll see how busy everything was. And that's the after.
What kind of tile?
Limestone. But you can now get a porcelain tile that looks pretty darn realistic to limestone. If you the touch and feel is a little different, but the maintenance is so much easier, and the cost is a lot less. So.
And what's the backsplash there?
Backsplash is little limestone tiles with an inset of a glass tile into it. We work in a lot of condominiums. This happens to be one where they have bifold doors to be able to shut that kitchen completely off. It had the beautiful fluorescent drop T-bar grid ceiling that never really worked very well, and really, really dark cabinets, really closed off. So we tore off some of that stuff just to see what we could do with it by taking the ceiling out, and then these little wing walls are there, and really that was all non-structural. So we could take more of that out and really open it up and create a really nice open concept kitchen to that space like that. And these are different materials. Again, those cabinets look like they're steel, don't they? I hope. Well, what that is that's this technology right here. It's, again, a wood core, and it's wrapped with a lightweight laminate material. And that laminate there, unless you come up and touch and feel the door, you'd swear it's stainless steel. But it's not. It's a laminate. So the beauty of that is it's not going to scratch like stainless steel was, and it's not going to fingerprint like stainless steel, and it's going to be really easy to wipe off. And the beauty of these kinds of products, they're pretty inexpensive to start with, but unlike wood or stained or painted cabinetry that age in over time, if you were to come back and replace a door like this 5 years from now, it would match perfectly because it doesn't change color like a stained wood or a paint will fade. So some advantages to these kinds of technologies.
Is it waterproof and it can wash?
Yep, this is a laminate material, so you can wipe it right off.
Is it the same as they use on the floor?
Similar, just thinner.
What about floors? They thought it would be waterproof.
well, they're not waterproof, but they're water resistant. So you can wipe them off, you just can't flood the floor. Okay? This, you wouldn't want to put it in a sink, but you could wipe it off with a wet rag and it wouldn't be a problem. Pardon? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
There are some
There's no formaldehyde in there anymore. No, that was a concern over time, but they pretty much removed the formaldehyde from those kinds of glues that were around. That's the inside of that kitchen. Note the countertops. What do you think those are made of? That is glass. It's tempered glass, and it's frosted on the top, and it's back painted on the bottom. And you'd think, oh my goodness, that would be just really, fragile, but it isn't. She actually cuts right on it. And you're not really supposed to do that, but it hasn't hurt it yet. But because it's tempered, that makes it very, very hard. What we do is we put a wood core underneath this for solid support. That way the glass can be quite thin. This glass is only 3/8 of an inch thick, but because it has solid support all the way under, it's totally supported that way.
What if you drop like bottle?
Well, if you drop the bottle on it, well, it's tempered. It's possible, but you'd have to hit it really, really hard. It'd probably break the bottle before it would bother the glass. But if you did break it, it's a big oops. Okay?
And then they left that awful parquet floor. Look.
See, did you hear that comment? They left that awful parquet floor. That was one of the things we thought was so cool about this place. That's everybody's reaction to parquet is you either really love it or you really hate it. And nobody's right or wrong. It's just that's the way it appears to you. So.
and floor.
It's a wood parquet. It's wood parquet, yep. Mm-hmm. That was there. The wood parquet was through the entire unit. So we didn't have the heart to even think about changing it. So this is another one of those. This is a close-up of that earlier project we saw with those LED lights in the shelf. This is another version of that. It's a kind of a handsome look, and it lights it up and down, which is really nice, especially over a sink like that. And so instead of having to have a sink light there, it actually works for you that way. This is a very common U-shaped kitchen again. With the formal dining room in the back, when I walked in there was a rabbit hutch in there. They never used it. And that's very common. I find that people don't entertain necessarily formally like that anymore. So the idea of having a formal dining room may not be the best use of space for you and your family. So the idea of opening up that wall, which is usually a non-load bearing wall for most cases, that completely opens up the kitchen possibilities of what you can do here. And see how much space that is now? And by opening that all up all the way. And there was the kitchen sink area before, and that's the after. You see, going back, you see the wallpaper. When was that done? I'm old enough to, when I sold that wallpaper, that's how old that is. But that was really popular back in the 80s. So, but the idea here is it's still white walls, real simple, but just by adding that touch of paint on the wall, you see how dramatically that can give you a change to your kitchen? Just something as simple as paint can make it work for you. And this is the other end. This is where the rabbit hutch was sitting. The formal dining room was here. Here we put one of those banquettes built in because we wanted to get the table closer to the corner, which allowed us more space over here for a big hutch, which was more usable for them. And so that's the banquette with the hutch next to it. Now that looks like something that might have been an antique. That's actually new cabinetry made to look old. We charge you a lot extra to beat it up and distress it and make it look old like that. But that could also be something that was handed down from your great Aunt Martha and been in your family hundreds of years. So whatever works for you. This one too, another tight little space, family room on this side. And right here is the wall to the dining room that's all closed off again. So just by opening up the dining room wall, now you can create a sit-up. And by opening up the wall to the other side, now you incorporate all these areas together and make them more multifunctional for your whole family. This again is another condo, very closed off. This family had a beautiful art collection and an absolutely great view to the outside, but you're stuck back in there and it was hard to see it. And it was all white and white and white. Now that's what we did to it. They went to the stone yard and they fell in love with this piece of granite. So the whole color scheme of the space came off that granite, the paint color below it. And then you'll see where we're going to mix materials here. So these cabinets in the back and the bottom are done out of maple, with the laminated white cabinets above. And you'll see commonly a lot of that where dark cabinets on the bases with dark countertops kind of give a visual grounding weight to the room. But by going lighter on the cabinets above with good lighting, it makes the room feel much, much bigger. And that was the view before, standing in that kitchen, and that little postage stamp size of an island was totally useless. But this is the view after we've opened it up. And now you see the beautiful artwork they have, but also, more importantly, they've absolutely great view. And if you're entertaining or having people over, somebody's sitting in there, now you can converse with them. And that's the back corner, was kind of a dead spot. And that's opened up. Okay. And you can have fun with materials. This is a little manhandle crawling all over your cabinets. I put one in a cabinet in a bathroom for a client, and she put a little paper, she put a little tissue of a diaper on him and taped it on him. And so it all then depends on what you want to do. So. And if you had this view to the outside in the upper floors of a condo unit, but if that was your kitchen in the back where you really couldn't see it very much, what could we do to this space to take full advantage? If you bought this place, wouldn't you want to take advantage of that $1 million view? So that's how we opened it up and created a very warm, masculine look. You'll see that a couple of edges and corners of some artwork here, over here and over here. Those were important pieces to this particular client, so we used them as a color scheme for the furnishings. So by doing the rugs and the pillows and things like that are areas where you can incorporate and bring those things together, but they're also pieces that can easily be changed too over time. And that's the view outside now from your kitchen. So, and another tight little space, and this wall right here is open to the dining room on the other side. Again, the formal dining room that they didn't really use very much, but they would like to use it. So it's all in what you want to do. So if you want to use it, let's incorporate it into the kitchen planning and see if we can't make it function better for you. So one way to do that is just open the wall up, and even though the ceilings change height, is how you work with cabinetry and different materials. It looks a bit more seamless, I hope. And then that was the before shot on the other side, looking from the kitchen back, and that's after we've opened it up there. Now this particular client, the husband grew up in Belize, so he comes from a culture where it's lots of artwork like this with lots of bright and vibrant pastels and colors like that. So that was generating the color of the cabinetry for the island and for the accessories. It's your house. You can make it appeal to you and what feels good to you. And that's standing in the dining room before, looking into the kitchen, now after we're done. And that's some details. And even just adding blue with hardware. Think of hardware in your kitchen as like the jewelry that the kitchen is wearing. You can change it dramatically, but also there's a lot to choose from on the marketplace. So finding these blue glass handles just set off beautifully against the lighter cabinets like that. This is one home that was not far from here in Bloomington, actually. It was built in the 80s. I love the 80s because the builders are so, they did things that now when I'm remodeling now, sure.
What's the function of side cabinets?
These pull out and there are spices behind there for cooking. So they created some pretty interesting nooks, really odd-shaped islands. They were, at that time, sunken living rooms were all the rage, and there's a lot of them in the Bloomington area. But when we walked in, we saw this beautiful table and this artwork here. Through the doors on the right there is into the dining room, and into the front goes to the front entry. So we wanted to capture the look and the feel of the table and the artwork and carry that through, because that was the feeling of the rest of the house. And so by opening up the doorway to the dining room and to the front entry and reworking the island, now you can bring those warm tones and textures through there. And that was what that island looked like before. I mean, is that a hip buster or what? I don't know how and then more than one person trying to work in that kitchen. I don't know who built this, so I can knock them all day, it's all right. So, but that's the after. Now I still created a bit of a shape to that island to fit the space, but it's much more softened and people can get around it more. I want to go back one and notice the windows. Beautiful corner windows, casement style. And you'll see how just having the casement style with that vertical divider in the middle sort of stops your eye, okay? Now when you change the windows and make them awning windows, see how much more open that feels, and the outside comes right in.
How big would you say that island is?
This island is about 42 inches this way, and it's almost 7 feet long. It's good size. And that, the countertops are different. That was the rustic table on the right. The back countertops are quartz from Cambria, and the island top is a textured soapstone from India that's readily available here in the Twin Cities, and it's a really interesting, beautiful texture and great to work on, actually.
If you're going to put an island in, how much space do you require between the island and like a cupboard or a table?
Yeah, the question was, if you're going to put an island in, how much space do you need for all the way around it? Typically, at an absolute minimum, if one person is working in this kitchen, you need at least 36 inches here. But the real recommendation and the thing that feels real comfortable is if you can have at least 42 inches. If you have 42 inches, somebody can stand at the counter and somebody can pass by them very comfortably behind them. So more than one person can be working in that space. And then, so we try to have 42 inches all the way around. If we can gain more, great. But we're trying to weigh that versus seating space and how big is the island going to be and what are we trying to get into the island and all those issues. And that was that same kitchen before, and that's the after. And then over here, TV, and then in the morning, right below the TV, you roll out the coffee bar. So it's all a matter of how you want to work in this space. This is also a 1980s Bloomington house, one of my more favorite projects I've ever done because we did the whole space, but it was this absolutely great view to the outside. They had a sunken living room right outside here. Great clients, and they wanted to stay in this house forever and enjoy it. So they're doing this for themselves. Don't think about resale. Don't think about what's going to happen later. I want to enjoy this house while I'm here. But with the sunken living room, that presents challenges. They're retiring. So what do we do about that? But by raising the sunken living room and getting the entire main level all on one level, that looks to needs that they might have now and down the future to stay in there. Also, this is the great view, and you can't really see it from the kitchen. You can really only take advantage of it from the dining room and from the living room. So we opened it up. And that allowed us then to put a really large island in there. It's a great gathering space for people. The living room was on the right, which before was sunken down before. Now it's all on one level. The tile is a porcelain tile, but it looks like a slate, and that runs all the way through the main level to the front door. So very easy care material, very simple to use, and it's a great look, and it's a great background for anything else you might put with it.
Cold in the winter, do you put heating tables underneath that?
The tile could be cold in the winter if your house is drafty. And while we were doing this, we added a lot of insulation and things, but you could certainly put in-floor heat under here and warm it up too, if you'd like to do that. This is the kitchen before, and this is the after. This is kind of interesting material too. This is this laminate here wrapping the back of the island and wrapping the hood. And that's, you know, just because hoods are sold on the market doesn't mean you can't make one. That's just a very simple plywood cover shell that's lined on the inside and wrapped on the outside with a laminate. not horribly expensive to do. And that's an oxidized copper laminate with a polyurethane coating. So it will always stay like that. It's kind of an interesting look. Yes, sir? This is porcelain tile. Yep. Another 80s house from Bloomington. Love it. This client said to me, I want to entertain 100 people in this house. And I want to stay in this house. And right through this door, you go to the front entry, and then there's a long central hallway. On the other side of it is a formal living room, and then here's your kitchen. And a sunken family room in this one. So how are we going to make this work for 100 people? Well, one way is we take that central hallway completely out. And by doing that, that opens up all these spaces. You can now take the island and make it long and then butt a table up to it. So everybody, the table now acts like a traffic cop. So everybody can be sitting at that table and talking with you while you're working in the kitchen, but they're completely out of the way. Plus, it's a great serving space. And if you ever want to entertain 100 people, that island with that table is almost a perfect buffet serving area. Or if you bring caterers in to handle 100 people like that, it's great for them as well. And then created a really good working, lots of high-end appliances for great working space in the back. But when we were taking out that central hallway, all along that hallway, she had a series of old window frames that she had salvaged from her parents' home, hung on the wall. She's really into antiques, had a lot of antiques in the home. This is sort of a takeoff on the antique idea with the tile. That's a pot filler on the back wall because he likes to cook a lot of pasta. So he's a serious cook, so he wanted a pot filler. And this was the formal dining room stuck in the very back corner of the house. She still wanted to use it as a formal dining room, but let's make it more usable with the rest of the house. So we thought, let's take those window frames that we saved from the hallway and just cut openings in there to the family room and hang them in there. So that's a way to be creative about how you utilize your personal things that are important to you, and then put a dry bar in there next to the space for entertaining and serving a large crowd. And this was the sunken family room, which we raised up. And you've got a fireplace on the end, so that creates a bit of a challenge. So what we did there was, here we raised it up, but right underneath the fireplace, we were able to create some cabinets under there so we could put all the AV equipment right underneath there and pull out shelves. And then you'll see the windows from the other side of the dining room.
When you raise it up, you make it smaller, right? You just raise it.
Yep, we raise it up 7 inches.
Raise the floor, leave the ceiling as is, right?
Yeah. That's the compromise. And that was the fireplace before. That's the fireplace after.
Is that a wood-burning fireplace?
This one is a gas. It was wood burning, I think, at one point, and they did an insert. And then I'm going to show you this next one. This was a wood-burning fireplace. And this is a revision of it. And this is an alcohol burner insert. So those are pretty popular because you can put a fireplace anywhere in your home now because they burn E85 alcohol. So they burn completely 100%. So you don't have to vent anything out, and you can put them anywhere you want. So this is a very small, great insert that fit right into the existing opening. And then thinking outside the box, when you're looking at your home, don't only look at just the space you have. Think about, when we're talking, remember at the very beginning of this talk, I talked about space planning. And think about what are all the possibilities. When we do a project, typically what we do is we'll put a plan together and we'll do space planning, and it's like, how many different ways can we lay out this space? And one might be, what is the simplest, cheapest, lowest budget thing we can do? And what is the most outside the box thing we can do? And whatever iteration we can come up with in between. You're trying to explore all the possibilities. Because how often do you really remodel your kitchen? Not very often. So you want to make sure that you're making a good decision. Well, in this particular case, this was the garage. This is a 2-car garage right off the house. But what they wanted to do was expand the kitchen that they had. And the typical thought that you usually have is, well, let's put an addition onto the front of the house or whatever and expand the kitchen that way. Well, I would say maybe look at all the possibilities, and this happened to be one. So let's take the garage and make that the kitchen, because it's an attached garage, and it's a lot cheaper to build a new 2-car garage than it is to build like a big addition onto your home. So here's an idea of the garage before, and this is what we opened it up with. The other thing I failed to mention was this is a mid-century modern home, and they wanted a very contemporary aesthetic to go with that. And so this is one idea. And this was now standing in the old part of the home, looking into the garage where we cut the wall open and looked right in there. And you'll notice you've got a big garage. It's a 2-car garage, so it's a big, big space. How do you utilize that space? Well, you'll see that a wall was added here to create almost a secondary space because they wanted a clean, contemporary look. So we didn't want a lot of clutter. We didn't want a lot of stuff on the countertop. In fact, you'll notice on these cabinets, there aren't any handles, are there? You go up to that cabinet, you touch it, and it pops open. There's a special spring-loaded mechanism in there that opens them up that way and keeps a very nice, clean look. But we put that, and the other thing that was really important to them was this piece of artwork. So you'll see that color of green was pulled out of there and used into the cabinetry, and that was done with these kinds of thermofoil cabinets here. So again, not super expensive. You could also have painted this and done it in a lacquer and would have spent 3 times as much money. So, but behind that sliding barn door is now a hard-working pantry where all the clutter is and all the storage is, and that looks like that. So now you got a work table, you got all your mixers, everything's out there, everything's right in front of you. It's almost like working in a commercial kitchen. And then now you're standing at the island of the kitchen. And this is what made it worth it to do this, because this was the view. If we had added onto the front of the house, we wouldn't have gotten this. But standing now near the sink at her new kitchen, you can look out into this view into the backyard. Pretty dramatic. And that's shot the other way. And then this is now looking back the other way. This was the fireplace. And right back through here is where her old kitchen was. It was a very tiny little galley kitchen. That's what it looked like. And so we turned that into a really great wet bar. And we have a penchant for these glass countertops. We did them again. The floor is, that was the existing flagstone that was original to the house. We kept it all, cleaned it all up. And then that's the challenge, though. When you open that up to the kitchen, you can't find that that's going to match. So what we did was we found cork flooring that worked beautifully with that. And cork is a very great product for flooring. It was very popular around the turn of the century. It fell out of favor because it was so hard to maintain then, because you used to have to wax it with beeswax, which is a real pain. But now with modern sealers and maintenance items, cork is a great, great floor for a kitchen nowadays. Plus it's very comfortable underfoot and it's warm underfoot as well. And so that's everything I have. I wanted to point these things out here. There's some technology in that in newer cabinetry. This looks like a walnut door, but this is a laminate as well. And when you take a door like this and put it up to real walnut, it's pretty darn good. And then when you look at the price of this and the price of this looks even better sometimes, depending on what your budget is, okay? And the other thing we're doing a lot of now is this idea of where you take basic cabinets. It used to be that you could get, if you had to get something unusual in cabinetry, you would have to go to a custom cabinet shop. Or if you wanted any kind of an exotic veneer, like this is English sycamore. This used to be super expensive because you could only get it through like a custom cabinet shop. It was super high end. But now what we can do today is we can take very standard stock frameless cabinet boxes. It's basically just a wooden box, and we can take doors like this, buy them individually, bore them out, put good hinges on it, put systems on it, and I can give you this look that would have cost a lot of money just a few years ago for a much less expensive option and really give you a great look. And so that flexibility now with frameless cabinetry is really allowing us to do a lot of different things. And so we can buy doors and have them made up from almost anywhere. And it can be very simple, inexpensive doors, and it can be as unique and custom as you want it to be, but you put it onto a basic wood frame. Once it's glued together, or screwed together and installed on the wall, it's a very hard, good structural element, and put good drawer systems and those good rollout systems in it. And I think that's one of the reasons why you've seen like IKEA cabinetry be so popular, is because you get the great look of the wood, some of the fronts they have, but the cabinet box itself is a very, very inexpensive, cheap material. And there's nothing wrong with it. I actually went in and I refaced an IKEA cabinet job a while back. My client asked me to do this, and never again. But because they're not, it's all about the labor. And unfortunately, it's the initial price of the cabinetry is very inexpensive, but the labor to put them together and set them and make them square and make them plumb and make everything fit correctly, that's where you pay the money. And most people don't realize how expensive that is. Whereas if you take a standard good frameless cabinet that's already square and true and pre-assembled, install that in less than an hour and hang the doors on it, I can actually do really nice cabinets cheaper than what other competitors can do. So I'm not saying that to brag about ourselves. I'm saying that these are all things that are out there now that are possibilities for you. So don't let yourself be led to, oh, I can't afford that. You might be able to. Or maybe you can just afford it in one area and you can mix something with it, like I hope you saw here where we mixed a lot of materials. So I hope I've given you some ideas and some things that can help you out. And feel free to come up and take a look. If you're interested, my card is here, or a sign-up sheet is here if you're interested in more about us or our company. But I really thank you for coming tonight, and I'll be happy to stick around and answer any other questions. Thank you.